right, there we go. Hello, Dina. How are you today? I'm so thrilled that you're here for SparkUpBiz.com networking. Get to know you and the feature that we're doing. So excited you're part of the SparkUpBiz.com community as well. So welcome. I hope that the weather is treating you nicer because the last time I talked to you, I think it was last week, and it was just miserable for everyone. And I actually look outside my window and it's a sunshiny day. So I hope you're having one too.
No,
No.
it's raining. It's been
Sorry.
raining for like 4 days.
So in other words, I need to send you an arc.
That would be nice. I could
Yeah.
use that.
Would you, what, okay, this is total tangent before we get into business. What animal would you make sure is on the ark first if you had to build an ark?
Which animal? Oh, it'd have to be puppies because I love my baby.
My fur baby is sitting right next to me, so
Oh, you can hear mine.
she's snoring. So if you hear
Oh,
snoring in the back, we were on a networking event. She and I were on it. Yeah, she gets on networking with me so often. I was doing a networking event last week and I had to mute and I was cracking up because she was doing that dog thing where they run in their sleep and I was dying
right.
laughing and someone was talking. She's like, "Why are you laughing at me?" I'm like, "I'm really not." But if you and I took the video and she was just full throttle and she was whimpering. You could tell she was chasing something in her dreams. It was the funniest thing. So you gotta love your fur babies. Anyways,
Right, right.
let's get back to business because we're
All
actually
right.
here for a purpose to find out all about you and your business.
All
We're gonna
right,
be
let's
like,
do
y'all
that.
are nuts. So, what is DK Family Court Trauma all about? So, what do you do?
I do a lot of things, but basically, I'm called like the guru of family court. So I do everything that has to do with family court. I help mostly moms because it's mostly moms who are affected. Yes, I know that it does affect dads, and dads go through a lot of this. But I talk about how they're selling custody of children, and it's mostly to fathers because they're the one who has the money. This happened to me, and I discovered that the guardian ad litem, with the help of her husband, the help of his attorney, who was in the business of the guardian ad litem, all just met in the back of the business and they sold my ex-spouse custody.
That's horrible.
So when I learned that, like there was like so many things finally made sense. It all made sense to me. It was like a healing, right?
Mhm.
Well, then in 2020, I was listening to this lady, her podcast, and she was called Amazing Polly. She kind of did what I did with the family court, but she did it with government agencies, and she would tie things together and she would do a video about it on YouTube. And one day she started talking about no touch torture. Well, I have a bachelor's degree in mental health. And, I've been through this and I'm listening to her and I'm like, this sounds familiar. So I went down a rabbit hole and I came up healed, is what I like to say. I went down this
Okay.
rabbit hole, came up healed, and whatever didn't make sense after what I found out before, the whole no touch torture, psychological torture thing made so much sense to me. And so basically, what they're doing is they're selling custody to abusive fathers and then they're using no touch torture against the moms, which it always made sense because people moms and children come out with PTSD from going through the family court system, well, because they're literally using torture techniques. And one of the things that I discovered, which is really interesting, is our government has an entire torture division. Of course we're gonna, but never thought about that. It's never really dawned on me. And so I mean, I was reading information about that and stuff like that. So they're just taking the information, and then they're turning around and using it in the family court system. And I've been doing this for 25 years, 26 years. I was in the system for 18 years because I first got my divorce when I was pregnant for my daughter. The day before I was due to have her, we were actually
Wow.
in court and didn't have her for maybe 5 days late. I think I was with her. And so, yeah, so all my children were concealed from me, and basically he's talked them into not wanting to have a relationship with me. And so a lot of moms go through this. Because of this, I created Non Custodial Mother's Day. I remember creating it. I was with my mom. It was 2011, and I started creating it. And I always can put myself back there because my mom passed away like a year later. So I can always see myself in her home, us talking about it and creating it. And when I created that, I was kind of like, well, what month am I going to pick? Right. And I said, well, let's pick October. It's domestic violence. A lot of these cases have domestic violence. And then I was like, well, what day am I going to pick? Right. And I started doing some research. And on October 28th, which actually is my birthday, the VAWA, the Violence Against Women's Act, was enacted.
Oh,
And I was like,
wow.
that's the day. So October 28th is not custodial Mother's Day.
Very cool.
So if I
Well,
want to make that a professional holiday, it costs like $2,000 to do, and I'm not going to do that. But you know, moms can do that and celebrate. So my tagline is always, let a hurting mother know how much you care. And so we don't have Mother's Day. We have non-custodial Mother's Day.
so if someone were to come to you and say, I'm getting divorced, I have three kids, what is the first piece of advice you would give?
Well, if they want to move, I'd move now before you sign, before you get into the court system, because once you get into the court system, you have to have approval to move over 100 miles from where the courthouse is.
Okay.
So if you want to move, and a lot of these guys you can't get rid of. I mean, until they actually get your kids and you're concealed from them, then finally you can get rid of them. But then, you know, you're trying to fight a battle and trying to see your kids. So
Are there any red flags that you should keep an eye out for as you're starting to think about maybe getting divorced? Or are there any red flags to pay attention to saying, oh, this, I might need to remove myself from this situation. I might be in a really, big bath of hot water type of thing before moving forward.
right. And so this is part of what I tell moms. You need to tell your story because people like me are listening, okay? And when I start hearing the same story going over and over and over again, I'm like, this is like something that's like a buzzword to me, right? And then I'm like, oh, let's look into this a little bit deeper. So I've come down to four ways that they actually sell custody. I can have a woman be telling me her story, and I'm already like, oh, they sold custody to him. I can already tell you that. And they're just like, like how? Now, I was lucky in my case, I figured it out. Okay. A lot of people don't figure it out, don't know how it happens. Um, but I was able to figure it out in my case.
Was there ever any consequences? Was there any exposure in your case? Was there any consequences to the guardian? I'm going to totally, I, I can talk
Guardian
today.
ad litem.
Thank you. That's
So
the
they
word I'm
call it a
looking for.
GAL for short, is what they call
Okay.
it. So, no, I had sent all of the House of Representatives and I sent the news media information. And 3 days later, I had a friend who died in a house fire that nobody believed was a house fire. And then I had people following me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So at that point, I decided I needed to move, and I literally picked up from the state of Michigan and moved. I move often. I don't tell people where I live and what state I live. And I have moved several times, and I have moved literally to places where I absolutely know anybody.
And this has been going on for 20 years for you.
Yes. Well, yeah,
It's
it'll be like 25 years. Mhm.
nuts. So in your case, the guardian ad litem actually met with, I think you mentioned in our previous conversation you and I had met with your ex-husband or with his lawyer in a back room.
So here's the thing. So the guardian ad litem is married to the vice president of a bank that's across the street from the courthouse. And at that time, my ex spouse's divorce attorney's law firm was in the bank. Okay. So I was downtown for an event. I was standing on the corner of the road. Diagonally from me was the courthouse, and in front of me was the bank. And I heard a voice that said in my head, take a picture of this bank. And I was like, why do I need to take a picture of this bank? And I started looking and I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like his divorce attorney's law firm is there. So at that point, I realized, the guardian ad litem just went to see her husband, my ex spouse, and his attorney. They all just went in the back and they sold him custody.
It's
I mean,
nuts.
it all makes sense. And then when I sent out this press release and everything 3 days later, I have a friend who ends up dead. I call me an OG. I'm like, I'm seeing these women who this is happening to, they're coming out, they're, going to their county commissioners, they're going to their House of Representatives, they're going all the places I went, and I have to contact them and say, look, it's all been done. Nothing's happened. Nothing's changed. Nobody will do anything. Nobody will help. I've been there, and so has several other mothers. And then this NALA came out, Non-Custodial Moms Are Leading America, which is kind of interesting. I think it came out on Mother's Day. So you have to subscribe and they send out an email like on Mondays. So that is kind of interesting to see what they're going to do. So,
What were your best suggestions to someone who's going through this to just keep sanity? Because these are your kids, and I'm sure that
right.
you're getting it from all angles. What are the best things that you can do for your own mental health and to protect yourself as you're going through this?
Right. So I actually took a military crisis guide. And I took that and I took my knowledge of mental health and going through it myself. And I actually wrote an ebook called How to Survive Family Court Torture. And if you are being tortured, it doesn't matter what you're going through, the number one thing to do is meditate. Go within, be silent, and meditate. And I was kind of surprised because when I'm reading this crisis guide, I was actually pretty much doing all the stuff it was suggesting, not even knowing that that's what I need to be doing when you're going through this whole entire thing. But that is the number one. If ever you're being tortured, go into meditation.
Okay. What did your lawyer do with the information that you supplied them with that said, "Hey, this is happening"? What was your lawyer's response? What are most lawyers' responses?
So
Um,
the lawyers are working for the court system. They don't actually work for you. It's funny, you pay them to know the law.
mhm.
And my lawyer sucked. I caught him lying to me a couple times, and at that point, I'm like, just get me divorced. I just want to get divorced and at least get rid of him. You can't just get rid of an abuser. They don't go away. They continue to keep trying to control your life and do everything they can for years. Um, and it's funny because at one point in time, I wrote an article on mothers being traumatized by the mail because every time you turn around, there's something in the mail. And at one point in time, he would have me in the court system one month, the friend of court the next month, the court system the next month, the friend of the court. I mean, it was just like ongoing, and you're just always in court and it's just always something. And, every time you turn around, it's just something. And it's just so much drama and so much.
Stress, yeah.
It is.
So if you are, and you and I have discussed, moms go through this, dads go through this. I always say that nothing brings out the ugly in people like death, divorce, and weddings. They're just,
Right. Right. And those
there,
are the
there's,
major stressors right
yeah,
there. Yeah. Those are the
yeah.
major stressors.
It's like you never know that relative that you thought was a sweetheart, until, yeah. Um, if you know that you're headed towards divorce and you're in an abusive situation, and you're looking for a lawyer to help you through that, what questions would you want to ask your lawyer? What research would you want to do on the lawyer before you engage with them, do you think?
There is none. I actually got advice from a friend, and that's how I got my attorney, and it was not a good thing.
Mhm,
Um, I mean, really, what I would say is I think you need an attorney to get divorced.
mhm.
Okay. But you don't want to keep going back and forth because my divorce 25 years ago cost me $20,000. People now are paying 50, 75,000, you name it. I mean, it's going up to like 400,000, which is absolutely crazy. So once I got divorced, I started representing myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no college education, but I was doing it. And I was getting so mad on the weekends because I'm working full time and that's when I really get to spend with my kids. And I'm angry because I got to do this, on the weekends when I should be spending time with my kids. And then I kind of started tweaking it, making it quicker and faster. I had little things that I did. At that time, also, I wrote a book because I wanted to help mothers. who are in domestic violence who are leaving these guys and then they want to go get custody of the kids. I wanted them to be able to help themselves. And so I wrote a book and I put pictures in it. I wrote a little ebook kind of thing. And then I created a family court journal. This thing was amazing. I used it myself. And I had a mother one time and she bought the journal and she bought the workbook. And I met her a year later and I said, hey, how did the journal and the workbook go? And she's like, I filed, I think it was like 10 motions in like a year. I mean, that's like a $5,000 savings right there.
Mhm.
And you got to remember, if they sold custody to him, you're not going to win. You're not going to win. And so, but when you represent yourself, you can do so much more than if you have an attorney because they're not really trying to help you anyways. And so I was glad that I represented myself for 17 years because I was never going to win. So I was probably, I want to say 11 years, 12 years into this when I realized that they had sold him custody. So, so I got an education on representing myself and how to do it. I created a business that was called Motions for Sale. And I had father's rights basically tear that down. They're like, you're not an attorney, you don't have a law degree. And I was like, no, I don't have a law degree, and I'm not teaching law. I am teaching documentation. I don't
Mhm.
teach law. I don't teach anything about law. I have purposely not memorized one law because I can't tell you law. So now what I did is I'm like, I want to redo this, but I want to call it something else. So I call it editable because they're editable documents. A lot of them that I have case laws and things like that that you can get. I have some free manuals too. It's funny, I have looked for manuals that I had used like several years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, and couldn't find them online. But I was like, wait, I think I have them on a thumb drive. And I've literally pulled them off a thumb drive. And if I don't write it or research it, I can't pay for it or you can't charge for it. So I give it for free.
Mhm.
So I give away a free RICO manual, the racketeering manual. I give a free pro se manual. Somebody had written one time, it was years ago. I love it. This thing is amazing. I give that away for free. If you want to impeach your judge, a lot of people don't even know you can do that. I was the first person to try to impeach my judge in Michigan. All you have to do is go to your state constitution to see if you can impeach elected officials. And if you can actually file that and ask to impeach your judge.
Wow.
But nobody will do that.
I know that I'm divorced. I'm on my upgrade husband. That's how I put it. Um, I'm an upgrade husband. I know when I went through my divorce, it was a very publicly contested divorce. And my husband has been divorced, and I have two beautiful step daughters. And record keeping is really important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think not only before and during, but definitively after. Um, we did not have the horrible situation that you found yourself in. I do feel, and I'm the step monster, as I joke,
Right.
uh, that there are courts that are definitively skewed one way or the other, whether custody is being sold one way or the other, and not always, not a lot of times. The parent that should not have custody is
Mm-hmm.
given custody. But records, I mean, I have probably 2 feet worth of
Right.
records that have been
Mm-hmm.
kept. So, how detailed and what do you suggest you keep in those records? I know what we kept,
Right.
and it's to the point of obnoxiousness. It's like,
Right. Right. I've saved
like
every paper I could save.
she's like she ate broccoli today. No, I'm just kidding. But
Right. Right.
but what do you suggest? It's amazing the things that, oh my goodness.
Right. So what I suggest and what I did was I got a 3-ring binder.
Okay.
Okay. So you put everything in by date, as it goes, if you do that and it's organized. Then if you need to take something out, I take a sticky note and I put it where it's supposed to be and I write what it is.
Hmm.
So then when I have to go back, I just grab the sticky note. Oh, it goes here, put it in, take the sticky note out, go to the next one, put it in, take the sticky note out. So, because sometimes you have to copy that stuff, it becomes an exhibit that you need and, things like that. So yeah, that is what really worked the best for me is to do that.
Okay.
Hmm.
I know just from the sheer volume of text messages we used to record we had a recorder for the text messages and the voicemails and having to record the
Hmm.
voicemails and record the conversations and when you find in the women that you work with, when you find that they have records of violations of the custodial agreement of the law, how do you suggest they move forward with that? If it's blatant, like this is, they left the kids in the car and it was a hot summer day, or they, didn't feed the kids, or they're endangering them, or something is in violation. What do you recommend to the people that you work with?
So the first thing you want to do is document, 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 which is
Mhm,
what the family court journal is great for. So what I did was I created, and their pages are the same pages. It's like 45 pages of the same thing. And basically what it is the who. So when you write a motion, you need the who, the what, the when, the where, the why.
mhm,
Okay, the 5 W's. Okay, that literally asks that. I now have created an app. If you go to edible.com, it's actually an app. And you can literally write a motion on that. You fill out the information, it writes the motion at that. It's absolutely crazy. I'm like, we don't even need attorneys anymore. Once you get divorced, you really don't need them because with the app, you can write it yourself. And then you can go back in and you can go back into the edible site, the website, and you can get documentation. You can get case information that you can put in there and stuff. I also try and put other case information in there. So I have like case information as if somebody concealed the kids from you and you can't talk to them, or they violated your visitation rights. I have, things like that in there too that you can go ahead and use. Then an attorney's probably not going to use, just going to blow it off, whatever, whatever. So, I try and put stuff in there. And if somebody emails me and says, hey, I'm looking for this, I'll try and find it if I can, or go through. I have a thumb drive with all kinds of information on it. And I'll try and go through that too and see if I can find information on that. And sometimes I might have like a collection of stuff and I'm like, let's group that together and then let's throw it up there. I try to make it cheap. I think everything I have on there is under $5.
I know that, different states have different laws and rules and regs and family court, this and that. I found it, and I'm again the evil step monster, but supporting
Right, right.
supporting my husband and through the journey that he went through with his daughters, that going to and I'm in New York State, going to this New York State family court website and reading through all of those fun documents about.
Right.
Highly suggest a glass of wine when you do it because it's very like nuanced and very detailed.
Hmm.
Um, really educate self-education is where a lot of people need to start instead of like, lawyers will get you divorced, but you really knowing what is and is not acceptable, what is and is not legal, and all the nuances of all the stuff that, comes with
Right. So you can
custodial
go on
everything.
to a government website. I used to go to, I think it was legislative.mish or something like that. And
Mhm.
then it has like codes and stuff you could do. And I could click on that and I could go in there and I could, put in like custody or something like that. And it would pull up those documents and information and you can click on them and you can use them. So, it had Michigan compiled laws, I think is what it was, search, and I can just
Mhm.
put it in there, and every state has that. And one of the things I would do too is I had like a piece of paper or I had a Word document, and I would put a link to information for like the state, right? If I wanted to look up a document, I would have one for federal. I had one for my county as well. If I wanted a quick information about the judge or commissioners or whatever, I would have links to them, so you can just click it. I mean, you're going to be using the stuff over and over and over and over. So you just want to kind of click it. I also wrote a book on how to stay safe exposing civil court. So we just had a mom that went to jail. She's in Texas. They picked her up, took her to Tennessee. They're holding her in the holding cell for weeks and have not even charged her with anything, which is illegal. So she doesn't know why she's there, why they've picked her up, why they've done anything. And I'm watching all this stuff happen to moms, and I'm like, they never put me in jail. And the only thing I can think of is because I put security measures in place. And that's what I talk about a lot in this book. And as my life started getting a little bit more dangerous of things I was doing, I started doing a little bit more things. Like I joined my judge's church. And, because I had a website, and on the beginning of the website, it says if I have to go to court, I will list the date I'm going to court and the time. And if the information has been removed within 24 hours, it's like, please find out where I'm at and where they put me.
Mhm.
I always had that disclaimer on there. And then when I got better, I was able to hook up the motions. People could actually read them. And if people wanted to, they could show up to the court. I have moms who have like, oh my God, I remember seeing you in court, and you were in there and you had done this and you had done that and whatever. And it's kind of interesting, like, oh, you see me there, right? And they're like, um, I was working for a company and I would go in and help people get their bills paid for.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you had heard this, but there were some kids in Michigan who reenacted Grand Theft Auto and had ran this kid over or whatever. And he was in the hospital, and I had to meet with his mother. And
Mhm.
when I left there, I almost threw up. Just the look in her eyes, and he ended up passing away. And I tried to
Mhm.
help get the bills and stuff paid for. But at that point, I went and pulled all the violent video games for my kids.
Yeah.
And they went to dad's house and brought him back. And I went into court and I gave them to him. I'm like, one, I don't want this to be an issue. Two, I don't want any violent video games in my home. And someone's like, I remember that. Like, you were so mad. You're like, take these back. Don't send them to my home. I don't want them there. And it's just kind of interesting.
It's it's different, that's for sure. I want to put this out here because you and I we were discussing AI a minute ago, actually before we
Right.
started recording. And we both also discussed that we should not be allowed to wear mascara when we're talking to each other because we will laugh
Right.
and cry it
Right.
off. There have been, so AI is great as a tool, but when it comes to legal
Mhm.
stuff, please be cautious of that. And I'm
Right.
going to bring that up because a lot of people, they're not going to go directly to the source of the laws or look it up.
Hmm. Right.
And they're going to go to AI. AI makes a lot of mistakes. In fact, there was
Right.
recently there were two things that came out in the news. I actually pay attention to the news once in a while. It's been so depressing lately, but I paid attention to these two. One was that there was a lawyer somewhere outside the DC area in that region who actually it was a DA that was using AI to help build his motions, and when he went to court, realized that the AI bot had given him uh, uh, court cases that weren't even existent to refer to. So that's number
Oh,
one. It makes mistakes. Yeah, the
no.
judge is
Right.
like,
Right.
these don't exist. These are made up. So the AI bot got it really, really wrong. So always check the AI because AIs make mistakes. It's whoever programmed the AI. You have to depend on their intelligence, and some of them are
Right.
better than
So
others.
what I do is I write it.
Okay.
Okay. And I've already researched the laws and stuff. Then I throw it, so I save it in red, and then
Mhm.
I throw it into AI and have AI rewrite it. And then I have my information always at the bottom of it, their information always at the top. So if there's something like, oh no, like, I wanted to put this in there, it's down there, I can do that, whatever. But yeah, a lot of people are supposedly making these programs that you can get that are AI that can help you. They're making their own bots.
Be
Yeah.
cautious. And the other
Yes.
thing that was another news article was if it's privileged information, if you want to keep it privileged information, do not put it into an AI because AIs are public and AIs are a public entity and the AI brain, the big AI brain in
Right.
the sky is accessible by all these public entities programming and pulling from it. So don't put it into an AI bot if you're trying to keep it privileged because it's no, there
Right.
was actually a court ruling, I think it was in one of the southern states that it's no, it's not privileged if you put it into an AI bot to try to get
Right. And
help
I
with.
was just reading or watching a video. I was up at 4 in the morning. I was like, let's learn about, Chat GPT. And you can go into the settings and you can say, like, after 7 days, have it disappear or have it wiped out or whatever. I guess you can set a setting for that. So it's not always out there.
Oh, it's new. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Apparently you can do that. Now, another thing I want to also say, if you're starting a case, a lot of times what I'll tell people is I'll be like, create a Google email. that's just for the court stuff. And then also do a Google Voice. Google Voice used to be free, but now I believe they charge for Google Voice. But you can get your own number that him and his lawyer have. So if anybody's calling from that, you know it's them. You can take your own personal number, change that if you need to. But you can, I actually have both apps on my phone.
Okay.
So I
That's
can
good.
call, I can get text, I can text out and everything off from the Google Voice phone number.
If you could go back and teach yourself one thing that you didn't know then that you do know now, if you could go back 20 years and go, Dina, this is what I want you to know. What would you, I mean, just this is what you need to know. What the
Right.
one thing, what was the one thing overall that you would want to teach yourself?
If, because I did a whole entire study on power and control manipulation, if I would have learned and knew that information right there, a lot of this would have never even happened. Not even got as far as it would have. I would have been out of that relationship before, it even got too far. Hmm.
It's scary what I joke with my upgrade husband that I'm the third wife. I'm like, it took you three times to get rid.
Third time's the charm, right?
Third time's the charm. Um, and again, have I'm blessed with two wonderful stepdaughters, but the one of the divorces was rather interesting, and I learned a lot of things that I never expected to learn. So, like I said, the ugly comes out in divorce, marriages, and death.
Right.
So, what would you, before even getting married, what would you suggest to engaged couples to really think about and talk about when it comes to get, because a lot of, you know, especially this time of year, because we're about to go into wedding season, they're seeing all
Right.
the stars and the candles and the romance and we're gonna happily get married happily ever after, and you're talking to a former wedding coordinator, and we're gonna have kids and live happily ever after. What conversations do you suggest to have to make sure that they're on the same page and that you're not dealing with a narcissistic manipulative partner that you could end up with trouble down the road with?
That's too
Just
much
kind
information to go through, but I would not get remarried again. I
of
will
okay.
never be remarried again. What I would do, so people don't understand when you get married, what you're doing is you're actually contracting with your government. I will not contract with the government again. What I will do is I will have a communion, or we get together and write it in a Bible and get a family Bible like they used to do. I would go back to doing that.
Hmm.
But having like a contract and signing a wedding agreement will not happen with this girl.
Okay. So there's
Um,
go ahead.
a lot of women right now are very tired of men. I know at one point in time in Italy, there were no children born for 3 months.
Wow.
Now, if you see all the stuff going on right now where Trump's trying to control women and children and birth, and if are exercising in the gym and you're pregnant and you have a miscarriage, they're going to come and jail you, whatever. So I think part of the reason why they're doing that is because women are really tired of men and they're not having children and they're seeing the birth rate go down.
Hmm.
Another thing people don't realize, and it's kind of starting to come out now, is the hospitals sell the afterbirth and they get a lot of money for the afterbirth. People are talking about it. So I had a mom and she worked in the private and the public sector and she started doing some research. And that afterbirth makes like a million different what's called QSIP numbers. And so that's how like the courts and the government makes money. They actually make money off from this childbirth because they can take stem cells and they can do all kinds of research. They're taking our DNA, you name it. So there was a woman who said that she wanted her afterbirth, she wanted to donate it to somewhere, and the hospital was like, "Oh no, you can't do that. We don't allow it because they're making money off it." So they really want to control that. A lot of women who are powerhouses and make money now, what they're doing is they are setting a vacation time. They're going to a foreign country. They're having one night stands. They're coming back and getting pregnant. I don't know who the dad is, have no clue. But what women don't know is I wrote an article. I have a friend who has a podcast, and I finally learned how these men who sexually abuse children are getting custody of their kids. So I wrote an article about it. about the podcast, and then I put a link to the podcast so you can actually go listen to it. But another thing that women don't understand is if you're living with a man and you have kids and he's taking care of your kids, he's paying for everything, roof over their head, whatever, he's taking care of them, and it's been over 180 days. And say you catch him cheating on you and you get in a fight and you're fighting and CPS calls and CPS comes out. CPS can actually give him custody of your kids. People are like, what? I'm like, yes, mothers need to know this. They can actually give him custody of your kids. It's
I think
absolutely crazy.
having dealt with CPS, like I said, I've learned more than I needed to
Part of the
over the
government and
years.
it's part of the civil court, which family court is civil court.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that and I know some CPS workers personally, they have some of them have huge hearts and do the right thing. They
Right,
research and they investigate. I also think that there's a large portion of them that are overwhelmed with the amount of volume that
right.
they deal with, and unfortunately things are slipping through the cracks, I think. And there are some that are just lazy. So don't get me started. That's a whole box of wine
Right.
story.
So I have actually worked in these group homes and I worked at a boys camp in the middle of Tennessee in the middle of the forest. I've worked group homes supposed to be trauma homes and worked with these kids who, come from that system. And so I pretty much know how it all works and it's absolutely crazy how it works.
It's yeah, I've mentored youth as well, and it's insane what the kids have to go through. It really is. And
It is.
it's sad. It's very scary what some of
And
these
we've
kids go
been
through.
waiting for these kids to come out of the system, and they are coming out. Oh my God, they're coming out beautifully. There is a couple of young men. Oh my God, they are beautifully coming out, and they are exposing the system left and right. One of them is reality. The E is a three. He's on TikTok, and he is just absolutely amazing. There's another one called Travis, but they are so amazing. And I share all of his stuff and follow him all the time. Um, just
It's amazing what they've
yes,
survived.
it
And
is.
sir, and there's someone I mentored for years who went through foster care, and she's so smart. Too smart. Way too smart. Way too smart. She's an overachiever, and she's had to fight tooth and nail, and to see these kids come out
Mhm.
of the system, and
Right.
what they've had to go through, and it's amazing. So I let's go. You see, I told you we were in a tangent when you and I started talking. I was like, because this anything's
Right.
on the plate to talk. So that's the cool thing about, you know what, that's one of the cool things about networking though, is you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what you're going to discuss. You never know what you're going to learn.
Right.
And it takes all sorts of people and with their experiences and with their passions that they're pursuing to create the world that we're in today. So, and we can learn, and people might hear this and say, you know what? I have questions for Deanna. I need to reach out and talk to her. And hey, I can do that on sparkupbiz.com. Or, oh my gosh, I've gone through this. I can, let me reach out and, or I know someone who could you talk to her. And that's the beauty of networking. And then we go off on tangents and they're like, oh wait, I can identify with that. Cause yeah, cause
Right.
we all got a little bit of craziness. So, and we've all got a little bit of baggage that we've had to accumulate over the years. So it's interesting
Right.
listening to everybody's things. So going back to what our original purpose for was today, what do you have coming down the pike? And we're already at the end of May. We're in the U.S. We just celebrated Memorial Day yesterday. And thank you for our veterans and their families and their service and their sacrifices. I'm going to sneeze, sorry, but thank you. Um, it's already almost half the year is almost done.
Right.
What do you have coming up the second half of this year that you're excited about with your business?
So, what I'm excited about is I feel that I need to start teaching therapists. I can't reach all these moms,
Mhm.
and I've got therapists. Everybody's talking about Darvo. I am so sick of hearing Darvo. It's not even funny. When I say I had the typical Darvo case, right? But then I learned these two truths. And so one of the truths was that they sold custody to him. And the other one was that I went down a rabbit hole about no touch torture and came up healed. That's what
Mhm.
I usually say. So I am now starting a coaching program to start reaching therapists and counselors and coaches.
Okay.
and start educating them on what is going on and what is happening. I mean, if I can actually tell you how they're selling custody, like there's 4 different ways, and I can tell you how the judge used psychological torture on people. And if you understand that, it blows Darbo. You can't even use the whole Darbo thing, which basically they're trying to say is that these men who are manipulative manipulated the judges in order to get custody. They're not looking at the fact that custody is being sold.
Hmm.
And when they sell custody, they got to make the mom look bad to keep all eyes off them. Now, if somebody is going to do an investigation, they're not going to go to the mom, they're not going to go to the dad, they're not going to go to the kids, they're going to look at the paperwork. So
Hmm.
they got to make the court papers look like she's a bad mom. Is what they
Hmm.
got to do. So that's where the torture part comes in. She can't do anything right. He can do everything right. When the guardian ad litem said that my ex spouse was a good dad, okay, I'm like, wait, I've got a personal protection order against this guy. The judge who signed the personal protection order then turned around and gave him custody, which is absolutely crazy.
Hmm.
I've got him doing all this stuff and everything else. And I was like, what do you mean? Then I discovered he bought a house when we were going through our divorce. He bought a house. Then he sold it back to the people he bought it from. Then when he got custody of the kids, he bought it on sheriff's sale. And that's the house he lived in with my kids. So he knew during the divorce he was going to get custody. He already knew that. But then it didn't happen in the time frame that he wanted. And I think the reason why was because I started speaking out and I started this website and I added this information on this website. And so I think I think when you have like a domestic violence case, they have to turn it around and make him look like the good dad and you look like the bad parent. So it took some time to do that.
So you mentioned Darvo, and for the people that don't understand the acronym, because people might hear this and go, that doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard of. And I'm an act I joke all the time. I'm like, that people don't. I had a great boss one time, and I'll never forget it. He put a memo on, or a post-it on my desk one time, and it said "F you this." And I went into his office the next day. I'm like, I don't appreciate the language. He goes, "Follow up." So not everyone understands. I was mortified, but that's just so for those of us who, you know, am in the camp where "fu" means not follow up, but the other thing, what it was mortified. I'm like, oh my God. So Darvo means you're laughing because you're like, okay. It means deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. So can you
Right.
explain what that is a little bit to people who are like, what the heck is
So
Darvo?
I had to look it up because I don't ever use the term.
Okay.
Because I'm using that they're selling custody, they're using no touch torture. So basically, what is the manipulation tactic that the dad is using? And so they're trying to say that he is doing this in court. He's denying, and then he just turns around and attacks her, re-victimizes, and offends, and all that stuff. But here's the thing: they're actually working with the judge. So when he's violating court orders, right? And you go in and you file and you go in front of the judge and the judge just smacks him on the hand or just ignores it and goes on about something else. You know he's working with the judge. Okay. So that's one of the things you can tell. If you're going into court and like I can't, you're leaving and you feel like you're twilight on your head spinning, like how did they, whatever, you know, he admits to sexually abusing his daughter, but you're giving him custody. You're going like what in
Yeah.
the world, right? And for the longest time, I was like, how are they doing this? And then somebody actually talked about, I think it was in Denver, and they talked about how they do it and how it happens. And I was just like shocked, like, are you kidding me? And I can tell you some horror stories about it. But yeah, let me regroup here.
It's
So,
so it's a Darvo,
right,
or what you call it. It's the, and I forgot how you phrased it, and I'm horrible. I'm sorry. But it basically means that the person who is the one to blame starts manipulating and gaslighting, like, oh, I didn't do that, that person, she,
right.
and discounting, like it's no big deal, or minimizing the behavior, or blaming the person that's actually do the blaming, like she's off her rocker,
Right.
or
So they're saying he's manipulating and the judge is believing his
yeah.
manipulation in this, when actually the judges sold him custody and they're kind of all working together. doing
Yeah.
this psychological torture against the mom.
So, yeah. So you help. Thank you for what you're doing because I think that again, it's so. And I went through a divorce, and I didn't even, thank God I didn't have kids that had to go through it with me because it would it's just so much to go through. It really is. So
Right.
thank you for helping people navigate this and exposing this because a lot of people aren't wouldn't even think of this type of manipulation and twisting because nice people, well, not nice. We're we're just there's a lot of us that are just too straightforward. We
Right,
don't
right.
we don't understand people that twist things like this or manipulate things like this. So thank you for working with
So
that. So go
now,
ahead.
have you heard about the 68,000 men who went on like a website of like selling your spouse and other men coming and having sex with them? Have you heard of
No,
this?
no.
So yeah, so there is a woman and she her husband was selling cussy. Her husband was selling her. So he would drug her at night.
Was this the couple in France?
I can't remember where it was. And
She was a
guys
woman.
were coming in and having sex with her while she was sleeping. Right.
He's in jail
Yes.
and they arrested like 40 of them and they're still
Yes.
going. This was huge.
Yes.
This was over in
Yes.
France.
So
Yeah.
there is like a website for this, and like I guess in one day, like 68,000 men went to that website. I was like, you have got to be kidding me now. Once I said, tell your story, right? Because people like me are listening. So this therapist comes on and she's like, are you guys finding that these men are like poisoning like their wives? Because I've had 4 clients this week, right, who've come in and their husbands were poisoning them, right? So I start hearing this like from several other women, like they're not anything to do with this therapist, right? And I was like, wait a second, this is getting crazy because now it's
Mhm.
like 4 people have talked about this. And I sat down on my own case and I was like, about a year before, we went through our divorce, was I ever sick? And I was like, I had morning sickness because I was pregnant, but it was really crazy. I didn't get morning sickness till like 3 months into the pregnancy, which was really odd. And I looked it up, and typically you have morning sickness the first 3 months. And I noticed when he was gone, like I would feel better and then we would come back. And I just thought it was like the domestic violence, that when he got there, I was just like a nervous wreck. And then when he left, I was relaxing. But then I was like, maybe he was slipping something into my food or my drink. And when he was gone, he couldn't do that because he had to make sure the kids didn't get it. So this is another thing that's going on. So women really are just so turned off by men right now. And we're going to have a problem because they're not going to want to have kids. But hey, they've taught AI how to, incubate babies now.
That is scary. All right. So if we're going to wrap this up, because otherwise you and I could chat all day. Um, if you would like to connect with Dina or other businesses, please feel free to, join sparkupbiz.com. You can join for free. You can connect with Dina there. You can ask her 20 million questions, which I'm sure some people will have.
Right, right.
And we do have networking events, and we're trying to talk you into doing a coffee hour and hosting a
Yes, you
coffee
are.
hour. So
Yes, you are.
we'll get there. But come join sparkupbiz.com and join the conversation and meet Dina and meet other business professionals. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll put your contact information up when we put this up on YouTube. And we really appreciate everything that you're doing on sparkupbiz.com. And we love having you part of the community. So thank you so much.
Right.
And
Thank you for having me. I love it here. And oh my gosh, if you want to laugh, Michelle will make you laugh. Don't
I've
wear
heard that.
makeup. Don't wear any makeup
I've heard
around
that.
her.
I've heard that before. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, thank you so much. I will see you around sparkupbiz.com. I hope that your rain turns to sunshine because very thankful for the sunshine today because we need some nice weather.
Right, right. I'm going to be on the networking tomorrow, so I will see you tomorrow.
Very nice. So, yes, our network inferno is on Mondays and Wednesdays, and we keep growing them. So who knows how,
Yes.
So thank you. I wish you the best. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you around.
Thank you very much. You as well. See you tomorrow.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.